The city sprawled beneath me, a tapestry of steel and glass as I sat at my desk, the hum of the office fading into the background. My gaze was fixed on the fertility clinic across the street, a stark reminder of the battle I'd been fighting for years. The weight of it all pressed down on me, a relentless force that made each breath feel like a chore. As a fashion buyer, I was expected to exude an air of effortless perfection, but inside I was crumbling. The wedding photo beside my computer caught my eye, a snapshot of happier times. Daniel and I smiled wide and hopeful, our future stretching out before us like an endless promise. 5 years of marriage later, that promise felt more like a mirage, shimmering just out of reach. The distance between us had grown with each failed treatment, each mounting expense, until it felt like we were strangers sharing a life. That evening, as we sat across from each other at the dinner table, the silence was deafening. I exhaled sharply, pushing the bill toward Daniel. The cost just went up again, I said, my voice laced with frustration. He paused, setting down his chopsticks before reaching for the wine bottle. He poured a generous glass, swirling the deep red liquid as if searching for the right words. Insurance isn't covering as much anymore, I continued, my voice barely concealing the turmoil inside me. He took a sip, then met my eyes with a practiced reassurance. It's okay, he said, his voice smooth but distant. We'll manage. Work's been good, but something about his expression didn't sit right with me, like he was holding something back. Yeah, I asked, tilting my head. Funny, our joint account has been shrinking lately. He barely hesitated. Just business expenses, he said smoothly. Had to put some money up front to lock in a few big deals. Nothing to worry about. I was about to push further when my phone buzzed. Olivia, my sister's name, lit up the screen. Hey, can you talk? Her voice trembled with excitement. I frowned. What's going on? I shot Daniel a look before stepping into the kitchen. You're not going to believe this, Olivia said, lowering her voice. I'm pregnant. I gripped the counter, my breath catching in my throat. Oh, I managed, my voice oddly distant. Wow, congratulations. Thanks, Olivia said, hesitating. Listen, about the father, I can't really say right now. Personal reasons, of course. Olivia had always been the free spirit, the reckless one. No steady job, no real direction, always leaning on our parents when things went south. Meanwhile, I had spent my whole life being the responsible one, doing everything right, carrying the weight of expectations Olivia had effortlessly shrugged off. You told mom and dad yet? I asked, forcing my voice to stay even. Yeah, I just told them, Olivia said, her voice light with excitement. They were actually really happy, especially mom. My grip on the phone tightened as a whirlwind of emotions crashed through me. I had spent years enduring the heartbreak of fertility treatments, pumping my body full of hormones, tracking every ovulation window with military precision, only for Olivia to announce a pregnancy like it was nothing. And our parents, they didn't even question it. No concern about the father, no judgment, just pure joy. We're having a little celebration at mom and dad's on Saturday, Olivia added. You and Daniel should come. Of course, I replied automatically, though I had no intention of enjoying it. The moment the call ended, I sank onto the cold kitchen floor, my hands trembling against the tile. I had done everything right. Every injection, every carefully planned moment with Daniel, every sacrifice. Yet my sister, who never planned for anything, was the one being celebrated. The knot in my stomach tightened as the days passed, each one bringing me closer to the inevitable family gathering. As we sat in my parents' cozy living room that Saturday, mom placed her hands over Olivia's stomach, beaming. Our first grandchild, she cooed. Dad, normally stern and reserved, smiled warmly, a kind of pride I had never seen from him. Would they be this happy if it were me? I wondered bitterly, sitting beside Daniel. He shifted in his seat, barely touching his drink, his fingers hovering over his phone, glancing at the screen, every fees. Twice he excused himself to step outside. It's just work, he said when he returned, flashing a quick smile. But I wasn't convinced. A strange feeling crept over me, one I couldn't quite shake. That night, after we got home, I pulled up our joint bank account on my phone. The balance had dipped again. Another hefty withdrawal. Daniel's so-called business expenses were becoming more frequent, the numbers too high to ignore. Lately, his late nights had piled up, each one excused with a smooth explanation about client dinners and urgent meetings. I shut the screen and turned toward the sprawling city lights outside our window. Why was Daniel acting so jittery? Why were my parents so overjoyed about Olivia's pregnancy when they had barely acknowledged my struggles? And why did it seem like the harder I fought for happiness, the further it slipped away? The phone jolted me awake in the middle of the night. Emma, Olivia's in labor. Mom's voice crackled with excitement. She's been admitted to Chicago Memorial. We're on our way now. I rubbed my eyes, blinking at the clock. 2:37 a.m. I reached over. Daniel's pillow was cold, untouched. Where's Daniel? I asked suddenly, a beat of hesitation. I'm not sure, Mom answered. Probably working late. Can you make it to the hospital in the morning? Yeah, of course, I replied automatically. As soon as I hung up, I slipped out of bed and padded into the living room. Silence. No text from Daniel, his coat still hung by the door, untouched since the evening. I exhaled, rolling my shoulders. Another emergency at work, I muttered under my breath as I set a kettle on the stove. For months, his schedule had unraveled, his time away from home stretching longer and longer. Every time I questioned it, he had the same answer. Big deal in the works. But something about tonight felt different, and I could no longer ignore the sinking feeling creeping into my gut. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the living room as I prepared to leave for the hospital. The anticipation of meeting Olivia's baby was overshadowed by the gnawing unease that had kept me awake most of the night. As I pulled into the Chicago Memorial Hospital parking lot, something caught my eye. Daniel's black sedan parked near the entrance. My fingers tightened on the steering wheel, so he was here, but he hadn't texted, hadn't called. Inside, I followed the signs toward the maternity ward, the sterile scent of disinfectant filling my lungs. The pale green walls and the quiet hum of machines brought back memories of the countless fertility treatments I'd endured. Each step felt heavier than the last, the weight of my suspicions pressing down on me. Then, just as I neared a hallway corner, I heard a voice that made me freeze. Daniel. She has no idea. I pressed myself against the wall, my pulse hammering in my ears. At least she's a good cash cow, he said, his laughter echoing down the hallway. My breath caught, then my mother's voice joined in. You two should be happy together. She's just a useless failure. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. Were they talking about me? Thank you, Olivia's voice chimed in, light and amused. Victorious. Oh, make sure we're happy. I squeezed my eyes shut. No, this couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of cruel misunderstanding. But then my mother spoke again. The baby really looks like Daniel. My stomach dropped. The world around me shattered. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. The baby is mine. Daniel's voice carried through the partially open door. We don't even need a DNA test. A sharp, twisting pain shot through my chest, as if someone had driven a knife between my ribs. It all made sense now. Daniel's erratic schedule, the unaccounted for withdrawals, Olivia's mysterious pregnancy, my parents' uncharacteristic enthusiasm. It was all connected. From inside the room, the conversation continued. How do you plan to explain this to Emma? My mother asked, her tone calm and collected. Olivia let out a short laugh laced with cruelty. She doesn't need to know anything. I pressed a trembling hand to the wall for support. If she ever found out that the money she saved for fertility treatments actually paid for my hospital bills, she'd lose it, Olivia said, her voice dripping with disdain. Daniel chuckled. She won't. I've been careful, taking small amounts at a time. She's always so buried in work she doesn't even notice. But what if she does? Olivia asked, a hint of caution in her voice. I barely breathed, my ears straining to catch the response. She won't, my mother declared confidently. That girl has always put her career first. Family was never her priority. That's why we created a real family. Daniel, you, and the baby. My fingers curled around my phone, my nails digging into the case. With shaking hands, I swiped open the recording app and hit record. In the end, she can't have children. My mother's voice continued, indifferent, almost dismissive. Years of treatments and still nothing. I wanted a grandchild to carry on the family name, and Daniel, he has wonderful genes. My heart pounded against my ribs. I had the proof, and they had no idea what was coming. A child with you and Daniel is a gift Emma could never give him, Olivia murmured, her voice laced with satisfaction. When I first got involved with Daniel, I never imagined it would lead here. A pause, then a soft, smug laugh. But now I'm grateful. I have something she never could. Daniel's voice followed, cool and detached. Emma's world was always about success, fashion, awards, recognition. But I wanted a family. She could never give me that. My vision blurred as tears burned down my cheeks. Every foundation of my life, everything I had believed, had just shattered. What will you name the baby? My mother asked, her voice warm with affection. Elaine, Olivia replied. I want to name her after you, Mom. Oh, sweetheart, my mother exhaled, overcome with emotion. You are my true daughter. Unlike Emma, you understand what family means. I couldn't listen anymore. Enough. I pressed a finger to my phone screen, ending the recording, then slid the device into my pocket with deliberate calm. My legs still trembled, my breath unsteady, but my mind was crystal clear. Without a word, without a single glance back, I turned and walked away. Betrayal, rage, heartbreak. But beneath it all, something else flickered, a quiet, undeniable sense of freedom. The unanswered questions, the lingering doubts, all of it had been resolved, not in the way I had hoped, but at least now I knew the truth. As I stepped outside, the morning sun broke through the clouds, spilling warmth over my skin. I reached my car, slid into the driver's seat, and rested my forehead against the steering wheel. No more tears came. Something new had taken root inside me. A plan began to take shape in my mind, cold and deliberate. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced down. Dad's name glowed on the screen. Emma, where are you? We're all waiting. Olivia had the baby. It's a girl. I exhaled slowly before answering. Sorry, Dad. Something urgent came up at work. I won't be able to make it today. A bit of silence, then his voice hardened with disbelief. Are you serious? At a time like this? Is work really more important than family? I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. Yes, Dad. Sometimes it is, especially when family isn't really family. What the hell does that mean? He asked, his tone sharp with confusion. I ended the call, sliding my keys into the ignition. For the first time in years, I adjusted the rearview mirror and saw myself clearly. The woman staring back at me wasn't broken. She was resolute. The days that followed were a blur of determination and carefully calculated moves. I moved through my life with a newfound purpose, each step bringing me closer to reclaiming what was rightfully mine. The first stop on my journey to justice was a meeting with Laura, a former law school classmate who had made a name for herself in family law. I needed her expertise and unyielding support to navigate the storm that lay ahead. Less than an hour after my call, Laura stepped into my apartment, her eyes scanning the documents I had laid out on the table. Bank statements, credit card transactions, fertility clinic receipts, each piece of paper was a fragment of my shattered life, proof of the trail that had cut so deep. I hit play on the recording, and the room filled with the voices of those who had deceived me. Laura's expression hardened as she listened, her lawyer's mind already at work. This is outrageous, she muttered, her voice laced with disbelief. Legally, you're in a strong position. This isn't just infidelity, it's financial misconduct. Given the way they misused your joint funds, this could even be considered fraud. I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. What's my next move? First, secure all the evidence, Laura instructed. Every document, every transaction, make copies. Then open a new bank account under your name. Quietly withdraw your share before they realize what's happening. Laura's tone sharpened as she outlined the next steps. We need to gather more. There's a lot they aren't telling you. We need to expose every last detail of this conspiracy. I nodded, steely resolve settling in my chest. How long until we're ready? A month or two at most, she replied, but you'll need to act normal in the meantime. They can't suspect a thing. A flicker of something dark and determined flashed in my eyes. I can do that, I said smoothly. I'll just play the role of the clueless wife. The next morning, I followed my usual routine: coffee, shower, work attire. Daniel still hadn't come home, which only fueled my determination. I moved through the day with precise efficiency, stopping by the bank first to secure a new account in my name. Then I headed to work, throwing myself into my task with laser focus. To anyone watching, I was the same as always: calm, collected, professional. No one could see the fire raging beneath the surface. That evening, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I'm coming home tonight, he said, his voice unreadable. We need to talk. I kept my tone even. About what? Olivia had the baby. A girl, he said, as if I didn't already know. Congratulations, I replied smoothly. To my sister, I have nothing to say to you. A pause, then, as if grasping for normalcy, Daniel cleared his throat. Right? Listen, could you make something special for dinner tonight? Like a celebration. I let a beat pass before responding, my voice light but laced with quiet steel. Of course. I'd love to. After I ended the call, I exhaled slowly. This is just the beginning, I whispered to myself. That night, I set the table with precision: Daniel's favorite dishes, fine wine, the glow of flickering candlelight. I greeted him at the door with a warm smile, playing the role to perfection. Welcome home, I said sweetly. Then, after a pause, I added with a glint in my eye, congratulations on becoming an uncle. Daniel hesitated, searching my face, then, relieved, he let out a breath. Yeah, thanks. Olivia's baby is adorable. Her name is Elaine. I raised my glass. Elaine, what a lovely name. I clinked my glass against his and took a sip, my pulse steady, let the game begin. Just like your mother, Daniel said with a chuckle. I smiled, though there was no warmth in it. How nice, I murmured before gesturing toward the table. Come on, dinner's ready. As we ate, I kept the conversation light. asking about his job, the high stakes deals he always bragged about, and his grand plans for the future. He answered, his responses measured, his posture slightly stiff. But as the meal went on, my easy demeanor seemed to lull him into a sense of security. Then I struck. I've been thinking, I said casually, cutting into my steak. I want to continue with the fertility treatments. Daniel's hand stalled, his wine glass hovering just short of his lips. Really? Haven't we done enough? His voice was too controlled, too careful. It's expensive, Emma? I tilted my head, my gaze steady. Are you worried about money? No, no, of course not, he said, quickly shifting in his chair. I'm concerned about you. The injections, the hormones. It's a lot on your body. I reached across the table, resting my hand over his. My fingers were icy, but he didn't seem to notice. Don't worry, I said softly. I'm strong. The following week, I worked in silence, moving like a ghost through our shared life. During my lunch breaks, I visited the bank, requesting detailed statements from the past 3 years. At night, I combed through Daniel's files, scouring his documents, emails, and hidden folders on his computer. Every detail mattered, every unexplained transfer, every financial tie between Daniel, my mother, and Olivia. The puzzle was coming together, and soon so would my revenge. It's worse than I thought, I told Laura one afternoon, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. For the last year and a half, Daniel has been siphoning thousands from our joint account every month. That money has been funneled into another account. Most of it used to cover Olivia's rent, her designer shopping sprees, even her hospital bills. I slid a thick folder across the table. I have proof, bank statements, transaction records, even recordings of their conversations. Laura flipped through the pages, her expression darkening. And your mother? I exhaled sharply. She's in on it too. She's been secretly giving them money from her own savings, hiding it from Dad. Laura looked up, impressed. I've handled a lot of cases, but I've rarely seen a client build such an airtight case on their own. I smiled, though there was no humor in it. They destroyed my life. I'm just doing what needs to be done. Laura placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. We're almost there. The only thing left is securing your own place before we file for separation. I nodded. That part was already taken care of. I had found a new apartment just waiting for my signature. The moment Daniel was out of town for his upcoming business trip, I would put everything in motion. The courtroom drama had unfolded with a precision that left no room for doubt. Daniel's affair, the financial fraud, and the depth of my mother's involvement were laid bare for all to see. The judge's gavel had echoed through the chamber, sealing my victory and marking the end of a chapter that had defined so much of my pain. But as I stepped out of the courthouse, I knew that my journey was far from over. A year had passed since that fateful day, and I found myself standing in my new office, the city sprawling beneath me once again. This time, however, the view was different. It was a testament to my resilience and the strength I had found in the face of adversity. I had built a new life, one that was truly my own, and it was a profound sense of freedom that coursed through my veins as I looked out at the world before me. One evening, as I stepped outside my office, the crisp autumn air filled my lungs, and I couldn't help but reflect on the journey that had brought me to this moment. The past had left its scars, but it had also forged a strength within me that I never knew existed. I was no longer defined by the betrayal that had once consumed me. I was free, living life on my own terms and embracing the uncertainty of the future with open arms. In the months that followed the trial, I had watched from a distance as Daniel and Olivia's relationship unraveled. The financial struggles and the weight of their deceit had taken a toll, and their once secret affair had crumbled under the pressure. Daniel, stripped of his wealth and reputation, had been forced to take a low-paying clerical position, a far cry from the high-flying real estate career he had once boasted about. The sight of him, defeated and broken, should have brought me a sense of triumph, but all I felt was a quiet sense of emptiness. One day, as I sat in a cafe, sipping my coffee and lost in thought, I spotted Olivia across the room. She looked exhausted, bouncing a restless baby on her lap, her once vibrant eyes now dulled by the weight of her responsibilities. The sight of her stirred something within me, but it wasn't the satisfaction I had once craved. Instead, it was a profound sense of pity for the life she had chosen and the consequences she now bore. I moved to another seat, unnoticed, and watched as she struggled to soothe her child. The reality of her situation etched deeply into her features. My mother, too, had faced the consequences of her actions. The social credibility she had once valued above all else had crumbled, leaving her isolated and cut off from the lavish circles she had once frequented. She had tried to mend our relationship, but I had refused her attempts at reconciliation. The pain she had caused was too deep, the wounds too fresh, and I knew that forgiveness would not come easily, if at all. My father, on the other hand, had proven to be a beacon of support and understanding in the wake of the storm. He had divorced my mother and built a new life for himself, one that was grounded in integrity and honesty. Our weekly dinners had become a cherished tradition, a time for us to connect and heal from the wounds of the past. It was in these moments that I found solace and strength, knowing that I was not alone in my journey. As I continued to reflect on the events that had shaped my life, I realized that the open ended nature of my future was not something to be feared, but rather embraced. The scars of the past would always be a part of me, but they no longer define me. I was free to forge my own path, to make my own choices, and to live life on my own terms. And as I stepped out into the world, the sun casting a warm glow over my skin, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head on with courage, resilience, and an unyielding spirit.